Thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. I appreciate all my subscribers, and I apologize that I've kind of been MIA lately. I've been nursing a pain in my back and in my leg. If you've looked at some of my other videos, you'll understand about my issues that I have. But anyway, art is my therapy, and I'm trying to get back at it to keep my mind off of other things. So here I am, and I apologize that it's taken me so long to get the next installment on our Paper Dolls book. So today what I thought we would do is to do some collage, to make some fun and funky paper doll characters to put into our paper doll book. So the first thing you're going to want to do is gather a bunch of images. I like to get magazines of all different kinds from all different places, and a lot of them have been given to me from waiting rooms and doctor's offices. I ask, are there any magazines I can have? So there's Vogue and Elle, and a lot of them where you can get some fashion images. And then every now and then I go on eBay and purchase things that are kind of odd, like Art Doll Quarterly, or fun and funky things that'll give me some really different images to play around with. So you'll have to look around and see. This one came from Somerset Studio. She's really cute. So you'll have to look around and see where you can find images. They're all over the place. You can get them offline too and print them if you'd like. But then what I also do is I make file folders, and I have a file cabinet with Pendaflex hanging files. And when I am laid up, I cut my magazines apart into pieces. So like this is a folder, and it's labeled food and fruit. So anything that has to do with food is in this folder. Different cool images that I've seen in a magazine that I thought were really fun and had cool food and fruit images go in that folder. I do floral, anything flowery and floral out of magazines goes into a floral. I do faces, so when you're in your Vogues and Elle and your fashion magazines, I cut out faces of all different kinds of just different models and famous people. It doesn't really matter, but I have a folder of faces, because what we're going to do is we're going to be adding those bits and pieces from them and making them into collage to make them into cool and funky characters. So here's one that's just eyes. Any ads that I really love the eyes, I kept just eyes in a folder. Clothes. So you go into your fashion magazines, and there's ads for different clothes that are clothes that they're trying to sell, or clothes that you just thought were interesting on people, or things that were out of books or magazines that were clothing. Like this is old Victorian clothing. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Anything like that, I put in a clothing folder. So I've got ones that are just shoes, just hands and arms. This is all bodies. So full bodies that you can work with, of all doing all different things in all different positions, go in a folder for bodies. And then arms and hands. So now when I sit down to collage, or I work in an altered book, I can go in here and think, oh, that is really cool. That'd be a neat focal on an altered book page. And it's already in a folder for hands. And there's hands doing all different things that you can collage. So that's your starting point, is go find some fun images. Find some images of some girls, find bits and pieces from magazines, and then we'll get started. And this does involve a lot of fussy cutting, so if that's not something that you like, then you might not like this paper doll project. But most people who like paper dolls know that there's a lot of fussy cutting involved, and I enjoy that kind of little tiny intricate hand cutting work. So I'll show you what we can create with doing some fun collage. Okay, so next you're going to flip through what you've got, and you're going to find an image of something. Like, I love this one. It's really cool in total. That would be really nifty on an altered book. Remember that if you're putting this into an altered book or a journal or something like that, and it's someone else's artwork, you have to alter it at least by 30 or 40% in order for it to be okay or acceptable for you to sell that altered book to someone else. You can, of course, you know, gift books and items, but if you're going to sell your artwork and you've used an image out of a magazine, be sure you alter it, and that's not a problem because that's what we're going to do today. Anyway, I love this body and the feet on this one, so I think I'm going to use that portion as the base, and then I'm going to put something else on for her head. So what I would want to do is sit and cut this piece out, and then maybe keep that head with the horns in another folder for faces, for maybe another project that I could collage it onto something else. So I'm going to use that one. I also like this one, is pretty nifty too, and it would be fun to do some wild and funky things with the face. So I might use that one. I love this body. This girl standing on a wooden box, and she's got a long sunflower with a dove on it. Her face is adorable too, so I would save that, but I think for collage purposes I would cut it off and use it completely different, maybe with some faces from a magazine model. I love the body on this one. That is just way cool. So that, again, cool and interesting focal that could be used somewhere in an altered book, but I'm going to use the body and then I'm going to embellish on top of this. So I'm going to go cut out a few of these, and then we'll do the next step of how to put together a collage. I thought I'd give you some quick tips on fussy cutting, just some tips and tricks that I've tried that you might like. If you have a self-healing mat and an X-Acto knife, sometimes fussy cutting is easier with an X-Acto. Be sure that it's a new blade. Blades are not expensive, so be sure you have a new blade. The sharper the blade, the easier it's going to be. And with an X-Acto, you can easily cut things out by moving your hand, of course, and moving along that image to cut around that edge and cut her out. And you get a nice clean sharp image. And it's good to turn your work like this. Keep your hand the same way, like if you were going to do some cursive writing. Instead of, okay, I came to here and I could be fighting myself. Turn your image. Sometimes you don't think about that, and that's a really simple thing. If you turn your image so that you're turning and twisting this blade as you cut, but as you turn the image, keep it so that your wrist is the way you would write and your image is what's being turned. And you'll find that cutting out is so much easier when you do that. See how I'm just rotating this with this hand and cutting with this hand, keeping that knife, the knife point is still in the paper. And I just rotate it. And I'm altering that. She has black tips on her shoes. These are actually her socks, but I'm making those her shoes or her feet. I may even put different shoes on it because I do want to alter it. So turning your image with an X-Acto. While you cut, and you do get a nice clean crisp cutout image. So that's something to try. If you don't like doing X-Acto and you rather use scissors, be sure you're using a really good sharp pointed pair of scissors. These are clover, and they're actually clover embroidery scissors, but they're nice. They're perfect fit for my hand. They're nice and small, and they have a nice fine tip, and they get really sharp. They're really sharp, so they get right into the image. And it's kind of the same thing as with your X-Acto. You want to turn with your hand. So I use the inside part of my blade, and I'm cutting along, and I'm turning this image as I go along, so I'm not fighting against my wrist of the hand that's doing the cutting. I'm turning with my left hand, and I'm just making that cutting motion with my right, so it makes for a really smooth cutting transition. And when you get to a corner, one of the interesting tips is, okay, like here you get to a point. You can finish that off, and then you can start from this side. And when you come back to that point, and you meet your points together, you kind of crisscross over them just slightly, and that way you don't get that little, you know, that little cutout funky little tail that you sometimes get when you stop and then you go into another direction and you have this little funky tail. If you kind of crisscross them and go over each other, you don't see that, but you get a really nice clean image. So that's my fussy cutting tip is, again, left hand, you're moving along, and if you do this, you might find that you really enjoy fussy cutting, because I know I sure do. It's very relaxing. You can do it sitting in front of a television, and there you go. So cutting it out, you get a nice clean image this way, or you can do it with an X-Acto. So moving your image, move it and rotate it with whatever your non-dominant hand is, and cut with the other hand and use really sharp scissors. Those are my tips. So now go cut, 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 and we'll get back to it. Another tip I want to give you is, as you can see here in this close-up, when I cut this out, I left a little bit of space. I was cutting close, but there is a little bit of space around her. If you cut right onto your image, and you kind of go just slightly into the image, let me show what I'm talking about. You're not going to cut off anything important. I mean, you don't want to go far into it, but just slightly in onto the image itself. There's not going to be any borders. See the difference between the one on the left and the one on the right? It just looks cleaner and looks nicer. So when you're doing fussy cutting, don't be afraid to go right. Let me show you up close here. Go right into and over the edge of the image. See how much better that looks? It just looks cleaner and neater. So that is an important thing. And then the other thing I do is on these images that are in here, you can poke a hole and use your scissors to cut that, but I like to cut those out using my X-Acto. I think it's just a little bit easier. And same thing, I go into and over that image, but I use my X-Acto to cut out that little space. And then pop it out. See, I could do it with my scissors. You can poke a hole through this paper and then cut into it, but it's kind of a little bit tight and intricate to do that cutting, and it just is easier and cleaner if you take your X-Acto on your cutting mat and cut that. Still do your same thing with turning it, but cut it out that way. And still crisscross over where you've stopped and started, because then you're going to have a nice clean pop out with no little funky things in the corners. And there you go. So that's my tip for cutting. Cut into the image a little bit and use your X-Acto for those. Now you're going to want to gather little bits and pieces of ephemera, because that's what you're going to use for your collage, anything. These are those Tim Holtz flowers. There's things out of magazines. Find all kinds of little bits and pieces and pull those together that you're going to make your collage out of. Next, you're going to want to find a spot in your book where you're going to put your collages of your paper doll girls. And you're going to want to do a background, and I'm kind of cheating. In my paper doll altered book, I really love, this is the back cover, and I really love this paper that's in on the back 2 pages, so I'm not even going to do a background. I'm going to do my collages right on here because I think I'm also going to put some words on the page too with my collage girls. But it's your book. Do what you would like to do for your background. You can use pattern paper. You can make a wild and crazy funky background. You know, the altered book way, like this, with paints and textured paper book text on the back and stencils, and make it a really fun background. But I like this, and I'm wanting this kind of plain because I want my collage images to pop. So that's up to you. Find your place in your book. And don't forget that if you're going into the book itself, that you're going to want to find where the strings are and remove some pages, because you don't want your book to become too thick and have it ruin the binding. So if you find a place here where you're going to Mod Podge pages together, be sure you remove some pages before you make your sets and find and make your place to put down your images. So anyway, here is my spot. I'm ready to go with my background, so I'm going to go ahead and start showing you some tips about doing collage. One thing you want to think about is when you're making your collaged paper dolls, you want to think about the height of your page. I've had this happen to me, so this is my mistake experience where I've put together my collage images and glued them together and had them be just really fun and funky, and then I'd go to put it in the book and it's too tall to go into the book. So if you have a small book or your book is kind of short, be careful to choose smaller images that will fit. This girl particularly, from feet to hair, will fit, and I just will have to be careful about putting anything on her head unless I want it sticking out the top of the book. So don't forget to put your images down on your paper and make sure that they fit into your book page. Like for this one, I'm putting this head, and you can have your heads be bigger than the bodies. In doing collage, it's fun to do kind of fun and funky images where the head is bigger or the body is bigger and it's got a really small head, or it's got a really small body and a really big head. That's kind of the fun of doing a collage image. So like on this one, I need to double check and make sure that yes, she does fit onto the page. So those two fit. And then I've got this image I'm going to work with, and she's kind of sitting on a bench and she fits. So she's okay. And for example, I had this girl and I absolutely love her long body. I found this cool funky head to make as her head. It's so cute. I love it. And then I was going to put this cityscape on the top as her crown, and a flower behind her back because it looks like her arm is behind her back, and I was going to have it like she's holding a flower. But notice how her standing on the box, it's too tall. It won't fit. Now you could back this with some cardstock or a file folder, and you could fold it back to front, back to front. In fact, we might do that. I think I'm going to show that with this one. I'm going to show how to make her short, and then we can extend her out and make her grow. That'd be a fun one. So okay, so she's all right. I've got an idea. I have a plan. Okay, and then I'll show you the last one. And this is my last one, and yep, she's too big, but I really, really like her, and I had some ideas for her, so I'm probably going to just move her down, and I'll end up taking out part of her dress, because I have a really fun collage in mind for her. So I'll have to play around with it and see how that one goes. But she's a little bit big and a little bit tall, and I was going to take a cityscape and put it on the top of her head. So that's going to make her even taller. So we'll see. We're going to play with it. In going through my ephemera, I have this really cute cityscape, and it just looks adorable as a crown on her head. Like a crown of buildings. I just think that is so cute. So I'm going to figure it out, and she might just have to be shortened in her body. I also was going to take this. This is a die cut from scrapbooking. It's just a circle punch out die cut, and I thought about slipping that over her almost like a hula hoop practically, but just to make some really fun interest. And I still can do that even with the crown on her head. I'm just going to have to cut her dress off a bit, which I didn't really want to do. I loved her dress longer, but it's just too tall to put in this book. So either I'm going to make her extend out too, like this other one, which I may do, I don't know, but we'll play around. That's the fun of collage, is getting together all your little bits and pieces and ephemera things and then laying them out and see how they look. So once you have your bodies and your heads and your feet and images and things that you want to put together on your page, then we'll go ahead and start collaging. First thing you're going to want to do is decide where on the page your images are going to go. So you want to kind of lay them out and see where they're going to be. And just see where each girl is going to be. I may end up not even using all of these, but we shall see. This one might look cute here. She might end up going a little bit behind that one. This one can go over slightly. And I've got some fun ideas for her. This one even can overlap this one because and go under this one. She's sitting in a chair. That's kind of fun. And then my expandable one, I think I'm going to put out at the side. So I think that's how I'm going to lay mine out. But you kind of have to get them laid out a little bit where they're going to go, obviously, before you get started, because some things might go under another thing. So decide where they're going to be laid out and then move on from there. Okay, so I'm going to start with my girl far right here because she's going to go behind this one that's a major focal. So I'm going to put these others aside and I'm going to work on her as close to the edge of the book as I can. What I like to do, you can take a glue stick when you're putting together your collage elements and you've got something and you like it. So you've got the head and I've got this body and I know that I want them together. You can place them where you want them. And then just put a little bit of glue stick on it and stick them together so they stay together before you put them all down as one image. I like to use glue stick. However, for me, on a smooth magazine image, glue stick doesn't always do the trick. So I'm going to use a little bit of my art glitter glue. I like this little fine tip for doing collage. So I'm just going to put a little tiny bit on the back here where her little neck is. And then line it up where I want it with the girl and press down. So now my images are together and it's not going to come apart. So that's my suggestion for as you create it. And I think I'm going to move her up to the top since her head is kind of cut off a little bit. If she's right up at the top along the edge of the page, that's a really good place to put her. So that's where she is going to go. And I am going to Mod Podge them down, but initially I'm just going to put a couple elements on it. I like this little bird. I'm going to put this little bird in her hair, and I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny bit of glue. It's almost like a bird barrette. I like that. That's cute. Okay. Okay, I know where she's going to go, so she's ready to go down on the page. So now I'm going to use my Mod Podge. And I like to put the Mod Podge down on the page. And use my favorite mixed media brush here to spread it out where she's going to go. Just a thin layer. You don't want the Mod Podge too thick because then you have a chance of your magazine image wrinkling. Too wet equals wrinkles. So for me, I want it to be just a nice thin layer. She's going to go as close to the edge as I can get her. And I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of burnish her down. And I don't like to go over the top of the glued down image until it's completely dry, because that kind of protects it from getting those wrinkles in it. I like it nice and flat, so I'm not going to brush the Mod Podge over it. I'm just leaving it with a thin layer underneath. Okay? Okay, now to work on the next one. I've got my girl, and I'm going to put her crown of houses at the top of her head. I'm going to overlap her over this girl and put her arm onto this page. Doesn't matter to me that she's going on to the next page. And I've got that circle behind her. And I have taken a piece of cardstock and punched it with a butterfly punch. And I am going to put that, like that, over her face. So it's hiding part of her face, but you can see underneath it. Okay. And then I've got this little image that's going to be hanging off of her necklace like this. And I've got a little pocket watch tiny that I cut out that's going to be hanging from that part of her necklace. And then I have she who must be obeyed. That's going to be on her dress here. And then I think I'd like this Lily Chocolates label to go in her hand. So what you do for that's another fun tip and trick. Okay, so what you want to do for something like that is to slide your cutting mat underneath her hand. Let me zero in a little closer. And I'm going to cut, see where her finger and her thumb come together. They're touching like this because she's holding her pearls. I'm going to make a cut right along that bottom, that finger. And then right around her pinky finger to the palm of her hand. And then when I do that, I can slide this little chocolates label underneath there, and voila, look at that. Now it looks like she's holding that chocolates label. I love it. Cute. So that's how you do that. So for this one, since I have so many elements going on with her, I am going to pre-glue some of these items together with my glitter glue. And it's just putting a little tiny bit of glue along some edges like her crown. This glue, you can get such a tiny little amount. It's pretty cool. And then I'm gonna glue that on her because I've got so many little things going on here that if I don't get them tacked down where they're gonna go, then she kind of all falls apart. So I want part of her mouth to show. I love that butterfly over her face. I just think that's different and unique. And then the little chocolates thing, let's put a little dab of glue right underneath her fingers where she's holding it. And let's glue that chocolate label into place. Perfect. It's pretty cute. And let's see, the ring underneath her dress. I think I'm going to move it up a little bit higher just for interest. And put a dot of glue right underneath here. It doesn't have to be glued down everywhere. You just want to kind of get them to stay together so that then when you Mod Podge it onto the page, it's not all wonky. Here's that little clock that's going to go on her necklace. It's going to be like a pocket watch. I'm going to put that there. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to do the same thing with her pearls as I did with her hand. So I'm going to take my mat and I am going to cut these pearls out like this, just slightly. Hope you could see that on camera. I've just cut those pearls right here, and that way I can slip the edge of this pocket watch under like this, and it makes it look as though the pearls are going through the link of the watch. So it's just a little, making a little tiny cut in there, lifting up those pearls so that it can go under. Just gives it a little realism. And I'm not going to worry about that on this one that I'm using as a charm, because I'm going to use my Posca pen later to add a link and draw a link around this. Like a link is going over her chain of pearls. So I'm not worrying about that one. I'm just putting it up to it. Okay, so now I've pretty much got her placed together. I'm putting her little "She Who Must Be Obeyed" sign down here. I love that. And I can tuck it underneath that charm. Okay. So now she's together enough that she'll go on the page with Mod Podge and she's staying together. Okay, and where you have a book crease, let's back out a little. Where you have a book crease, where you're going to put this, got to kind of decide where I want her. I think I may even tip her at an angle. Oh, I like that. That's kind of fun. Okay, so where her hand is and where that crease is, you just want to take your finger or a bone folder and you're just going to kind of go along those little pieces and make a crease in them, because they're going to be right in that edge. So I'm going to take her off and put some Mod Podge down. Spread it out with my brush. Go across to the other page since she's going to be going over pages. Okay. All right, and come back over here where my little creases are. That helps me line her up where she is in the book crease. That doesn't matter. And you want to push that down first with your finger in that crease. Get it really good in the crease. If there's any space underneath, then when you fold up that page, it's not going to fold quite right. So really push it down in there. Cool. Okay, now you can use your paper towel to just burnish it down. And we can go back, like underneath this isn't stuck down, so let's stick a little Mod Podge under there. This isn't stuck down, so let's put some Mod Podge under there. Just putting a little down there with my brush. I'm just being light-handed with my Mod Podge because I don't want it to wrinkle my magazine images. Okay, so for right now, we're looking good. Oops, got my little pearls. I need some over those pearls to hold them down. Okay. Well, I'm going to let that dry a bit before I add any Mod Podge over the top of it. But so far, everything seems to be tacked down really nicely. Cute. Okay, it's coming along. And then as you can see, as I back out here, as you can see, I'm going to have to cut her dress off at the bottom, but that's all right. I'm fine with that. Okay, so I've gone and put the large one down where I want that to go because this one is going to be in front of her, so obviously this one has to go down first. That's the only thing with collage is you kind of have to plan a little bit before you start gluing, but it's not that complicated. And with this girl, I'm going to add butterfly wings to the back. So I've taken a little image of butterfly wings, and I've cut it in half right down the middle, and I'm gluing it behind her on either side to make it look like butterfly wings are coming out from behind her, like that. Just to hold it in place. And then I want her to go right about here. I don't want her to cover that arm. So I'm ready to put down my Mod Podge and put her in place. And then take my paper towel and just gently burnish her down. Okay. All right, I'm loving it so far. Okay, my idea for this long girl, what I'm going to do with that one, let me zoom all the way out that I can. I'm going to put her onto a file folder. So I am going to glue her down, and it's okay to glue her right on that fold, that bend of that, because I'd like to have her have this crown of buildings again. I'm going to tuck it behind. I love taking a skyscrape, you know, of buildings and making that into a crown. So I'm going to put that on there, and her head here, and the flower behind her back, like she's holding a flower. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this all down, Mod Podge it down to this piece of file folder and let it dry. And the fold in the file folder, I'm going to put that just right under the edge of her dress, because I'm going to make another fold right at her ankles going the opposite way. So I'm putting her dress right at the edge. Okay, here is my long girl. She is on a file folder, and I had to recut her out again. And what I'm going to do is make the folds in her where she's going to kind of accordion to make her shorter. So what I want to do, since there's a fold right here at the bottom of her dress, and I kind of want that to come over her shoes, I'm going to just kind of bend this to right here. See how that's going to make it look like her dress comes to just the tip of her shoes, and then flip it over and then push that down in the back like that to make that bend. Okay. And now she fits on the page. Let me show you. Here's my page. Get this in frame here. And now she is standing on her box, and she fits on the page. And then what we're going to do is glue that box down, and then you can pull her up, and it'll make it look like her legs get longer, like that. So what I'm going to do, though, is on the back of her, where she has the two places that are bent, I'm going to just take a little piece of cotton muslin material, and I'm going to Mod Podge that over those areas just to make them stronger for folding it, because, you know, paper tends to wear out after time, and material will just keep it strong. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a skinnier piece. I'm going to just cut a little piece here and then just Mod Podge that down to the back, because material is foldable and it'll keep that stronger. Okay, I have put glue on the back of the box here that she's standing on and glued her into place. And then I think I'm going to put a little bit of that, those little circles with the Velcro on them behind her, so that it can be Velcroed down, she can be in place, and then you can pull it up so that she stays in place. I don't know, may not need it, but it's kind of wobbly without. But I really like it. It looks really, really cute. Yeah, a piece of Velcro there would be perfect. But now she's short, and then when you unhook the Velcro behind her head, you can pull her up, and there's her long legs. And she goes above the page with her cityscape hat. I really like that. It's kind of cute. And her flower hangs off the page, and I'm not sure right now if I'm going to cut that off or leave it, but it doesn't matter. My last favorite part of this is to add all the bling and embellishments. I like to add just flat back rhinestones and three-dimensional flowers and all kinds of fun things to it, and do some stabilo behind it to make them pop out. And I'm going to do all that, and when I get that exactly the way that I want it, I'm going to add some words to the page because I have a great saying that I want to put on this. So I'm going to just play around and add some bling. You know, if, like, for example, I've got this Jolie flower. It's kind of a lotus flower, and I think it would look pretty darn fabulous to be on her and across her face like this. Look at that. Woo, love it, love it, love it. So she's got lotus in her hair. That is just, that goes so perfectly with her. I love it. So that kind of stuff. I'm going to add some of these three-dimensional flowers along this girl's hairline, I think, to make like a little crown of flowers. I'm going to add some embellishments and things. Like this is a metal embellishment. They were from scrapbooking. Actually, that's a brad, so maybe I won't use it. I don't know, but I'm going to play around. I'm going to add some embellishments to it, and then I'm going to come back and show you how I finish it off with stabilo and words. This is most definitely my favorite part, is when you get to add the fun and interest. And I just wanted to show you an idea that I had on this. The long girl, I did put a flower on her, and I cut her bigger flower off. I didn't like it, so I cut it off. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some interest by adding some wire. I am going to poke a little hole right here, just alongside of her, and I'm going to take some wire. It's kind of a copper wire. Okay, and I just cut a length of wire, and I'm going to stick the wire down through and around the back and back to the front here. And just to add some interest, I'm going to take this is just like a pop stick, you know, for making those cake pops. And I'm going to wrap it around to make some curlies and some bends in it. And then I'm going to push them up against her and flatten them out. Oh, I love it. It's so cool looking. And then I'm going to go around to that piece that comes out the back and just twist it. So now you've got, hopefully you can see that, some really cool wire twists that go across her. And then I'm going to hang a charm right here from this wire. Okay, I'm taking a little clock charm, and I am going to put it on the wire. Just feed it onto the wire there. And then twist the wire around. And then I'm going to cut that off with some wire snips. So now you've got some really, like, it's an interesting little belt with a little steampunk clock on her dress. I love it. It's just very fun and interesting and adds more of a mixed media feel to it. And then I've added some bling. I did a flat back rhinestone here. I've added some stickles to the wings of my dragonfly. I've added some three-dimensional flowers mixed in with the other flowers. And I'm just taking some wire cutters and cutting off those wires. Actually, I think I'm going to cut them off different lengths. And curl them in. Make little curls inward. Be easier to do this with the pliers. But you get the gist. Just to make some interest. Oh, I love that. Okay, now I've got a stabilo. It is a stabilo, and the number is 8046 black stabilo. And what I'm going to do now is come along the edge of my girls and put some stabilo. and then blend it out. You can use your finger, you can use a Q-tip. I have this Lowell Cornell style stick, and it's kind of like rubbery at the end, and I love using that for blending out my Stabilo. So I just come in here and use my finger and this little blender tool, and then just blend it out because I want a really nice strong shadow behind my girls. I love it. See how that just makes it pop? So I'm going to go along here and I'm going to do Stabilo all behind all the girls just to make them pop off the page. Okay, for my last, I've done my Stabilo around my girls, and I always go heavier to one side. So like the Stabilo is going to be heavier on the left of everything, to the left, and just a light shadow to the right. That's to me, just because in art, you know, your light source shines from one angle and it creates a shadow over here. So I wouldn't want to take the black Stabilo and go around the whole thing black. This is shadowed but lightly, and this is black, so it's everything has shadow on that side. That's just my preference. Everybody has a different way of doing it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Uniposca black pen, and I'm going to add some little touches. I did take some Tim Holtz Distress ink, and I went around my butterfly here because it was just too stark for me, and then I did go around the edge with some green Tim Holtz Distress ink just to frame it out a little bit. And then I'm going to come in, and I like to make these little dots. They're like different sizes. It's kind of a take on it's kind of a Tisha Moore style. She likes to do borders and things, and I like to add those little dots just here and there, and I make them varied in size, and then it just adds a little interest to the piece. So that's just my preference. I love to put my little dots. And then I am also going to put my saying, and I'm going to put that across the back and down. So I'm going to go ahead and write in my saying. I think on this girl, I think I'm going to give her an eyebrow over this eye with my paint pen here, my Posca pen. She needs an eyebrow. Oh yeah, that's what that needed. I love it. She just one. She has a flower eye over here, and I added an eyebrow on that side. I just like that little touch. So I'm going to go ahead and write in my saying, and then I'll show you the finished piece. Okay, so I've finished. I have added my saying, "In this crazy mixed up world, be authentically you." So that is my saying to go with our crazy mixed up paper doll girls here. We've got our girl on the side that we can extend and make taller. And then the rest is just a bunch of mixed media collage fun. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it inspired you and gave you some ideas on how to do some collage work in your book. And look back for more videos, and we'll keep working on this Paper Dolls book until it's completed. So thanks for being patient when I wasn't around, and for sticking with it. And I hope that you're enjoying creating this Paper Dolls altered book, because it sure is fun. Thanks for stopping by, and have a blessed day.